Welcome to Power Yourself, where I talk about the most important topic in the world, you. Today we are looking at the benefits of sleep. We're going to look at the appropriate amount of hours we should be getting per night, reasons why we're not getting enough sleep, and then for the majority of the show, we're going to focus on ideas for setting up your perfect bedtime ritual. Now, some facts I came across while researching for today's show is from Google and CBC. And they said about 55% of women ages 18 to 64 have actually reported trouble going to sleep or staying asleep. It also talked about 60% of Canadian adults actually feel tired most of the time and get on average 6.9 hours of sleep per night. 30% of adults actually get fewer than 6 hours a night, although experts recommended 8 hours. Another thing was 68% said that they don't have enough time to sleep as much as they would like to. 32% said they wake up and they actually can't get back to sleep. And then 27% of people said they have too much on their mind and they can't relax to actually fall asleep. So those are some of the things that we're actually going to try to address today, especially the busy mind and kind of setting yourself up for that perfect bedtime ritual so that you'll fall asleep a little bit easier and your mind will hopefully be a little bit more clear. So what actually happens when we don't get the sleep we need? So it's said that insufficient sleep, so short duration of sleep or actually a poor quality of sleep, is associated with a range of adverse health outcomes. Some things including obesity, type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, injuries, depression, irritability, and reduced well-being. Also, a lack of sleep reduces the function of our immune system. Another thing is chronic sleep problems are actually linked to heart disease, high blood pressure, and even some cancers. So something I really didn't even consider before doing the research for today is that skimping on sleep, it actually starts to increase our hunger. So in 2004, researchers at the University of Chicago discovered that sleep loss could reduce the body's ability to actually regulate hormones that control hunger. Ever stay up late one night and start to notice that you actually start craving food, especially those comfort foods almost, the carbohydrates, the breads, the muffins, the cookies, stuff like that. So one of the professors from this study in Chicago said that subjects who slept only 4 hours a night for 2 nights had an 18% decrease in leptin. And leptin is actually a hormone that tells our brain there is no need for more food. Now, in those same subjects, they started to notice a 28% increase in another hormone that actually increases hunger. Okay, so acknowledging here that when our body does not have enough sleep, we actually start to crave food, allowing us to actually eat more than our body actually needs. So it's searching for that comfort because of the lack of sleep. So we've acknowledged here what happens when we don't get enough sleep. Now let's actually focus on the benefits of sleep. Okay, so what's happening when we get that sleep per night? So first of all, our brain starts to sort and process the day's information. So that's really important for creating long-term memory in our brains. So it's taking all that information that we've taken in for today, and it's starting to put pieces of it into that long-term memory. Now, our sympathetic nervous system, and that's the piece that kind of controls that fight or flight responses, okay? When we sleep, it actually gets a chance to relax, and that's going to allow the body and the muscles just time to rejuvenate and really slow down. During sleep, hormones are also released in our bodies. So melatonin, this is the thing that's going to help with sleep patterns. And actually the pituitary gland releases growth hormones. Now that's going to help our bodies develop while we sleep, even grow. And also, really importantly, it's going to start to repair our bodies itself. Another thing that happens when we sleep are cortisol levels. So that stress hormone, it actually decreases for the first couple of hours. And our immune system releases small proteins. So that's really important to our body because that's the piece that's going to help us fight things like inflammation, infection, and even trauma. So without sleep, our immune systems, they really don't function at best. So they're not able to fight off the majority of colds or flus or any of the bugs coming around, not even mentioning anything bigger that we might be up against. So Canadian research indicates that after people sleep, they actually tend to retain information better. And not only do they retain that information, they actually perform a lot better on memory tasks. So sleep impacts brain function. We all knew that, but it's always nice to kind of have the research and the studies behind it to really show us the importance of why it's essential that we get that sleep. So think of it for a second. Think of those times that you are maybe a little sleep deprived. You might not react as quickly in an event or in a situation, or you might not even be as accurate as what you would have liked to. So remembering here, by us taking the time and really making it a priority for us to get that sleep, we're really helping our reactions and our brains be able to function a lot better. So how many hours are essential at night? Now, I believe we get into habits and we start to really think that our body needs less sleep than what most people need. But from Stats Canada, they actually released something in 2017. So for adults, and that's going to be age 18 and older, they need from 7 to 9 hours. So that's what's actually recommended that each of us get per night. Now that we've touched on the research kind of behind it all, so what happens when we sleep and what are the effects, like positive and negative, when we don't get enough of sleep. Now, what I want to spend the majority of time on is reasons for not achieving it. So what's happening? What's actually preventing us in our day-to-day from not achieving that recommended hours of sleep? And also, what are some things that we can tangibly do as individuals to help better our sleep patterns, to help get that essential time to allow our bodies to rest and essentially rejuvenate so that we can show up and really be present, aware, and better able to handle ourselves in day-to-day situations. So let's focus on the reasons for not achieving it. So what's preventing us? So think of it. When you know you need to get up really early the next day, or when you wake up in the middle of the night, do you ever just start to look over to your bedside table and maybe start to focus on the clock to the point that it actually really starts to keep you up? Sometimes I know I start to get really nervous that I'm not going to get enough sleep. So I start to count out the hours. How many hours, if I go to sleep right now, am I actually going to get? Or am I going to wake up on time? Or am I going to miss my alarm clock or my alarm clock not actually work? So your head's actually starting to race. And it's like your brain is working against you and not allowing you to actually sleep. So one of the big things of not getting enough sleep is actually our brains are racing. So from the paper I mentioned earlier from Stats Canada, they also included factors that may be associated with insufficient sleep. And that includes stuff like exposure to artificial light. So whether your lights are on, what kind of lamp is actually by your bedside table. It also could be stuff like caffeine consumption, work demands. So that's once again leading into that dialogue in our heads, keeping us really alert. Social commitments would be the exact same, family dynamics, and stress. So maybe really going over in your head certain situations at work or at home or with your friends. Maybe that's upcoming or that's already happened. You start to really play those events over and over again. Now, that's bad enough when it's in our day to day, but when we're actually trying to wind down and get to sleep, if our brains are still racing, it makes it even harder to be able to relax enough to really fall asleep. So because at some point in our life, we all face this. Sometimes it can be that family dynamic or that stress about a situation that's coming up, or maybe a work thing that we're facing. So what I want to do is I want to really focus on how to take back control and really get that restorative sleep that we as human beings really need to achieve. So really focusing here on how to achieve sleep. What are things that we can set up and create an actual bedtime ritual so that we can set ourselves up to actually succeed every night? Okay, so some of the tips I came across were sticking to a regular sleep schedule. So that's a big thing. So going to bed at the same time every night and getting up at the same time every morning. And the sad thing is they even suggest even on weekends too, or days off. But what that's doing is it's creating a pattern with your body. Okay, so I used to love sleeping in. I used to absolutely adore sleeping in really, really late, like, 10 o'clock or whatever. I can remember as a teen, oh my God, I can't imagine what my parents thought, but 12 o'clock was a pretty norm time to get up. But the thing with that is when we're always changing what time we're going to bed and waking up, it's different patterns. So it's really hard for our bodies to get used to it. Now that I'm really sticking to that pattern almost in my, let's say, my adult years, what's happening is actually I'm starting to get up even before my alarm clock. Now what happens on the weekend is I actually still get up pretty much at the same time. Now I might lie in bed a little bit longer just to read or relax, or maybe even if I'm lucky enough, get an extra hour in. But my body's trained basically to get up at that same time every day, which makes it a lot easier because I'm not fighting against myself. It's almost like the norm. It's set up for me. So it makes it really a lot easier for my body to know when I have to go to sleep and essentially know when I have to get up. So another important feature that I came across was creating those rituals. So like I mentioned, those bedtime rituals. And those are set up to wind you down at bedtime. So things that you really want to avoid with that bedtime ritual is actually screen time. So you really want to take away TV watching, playing on your phones, I know is a really big thing. But any stimulation to your mind or to your eyes that's really going to enforce you to actually stay awake and stay alert. So one of the really quick fixes that if you're having trouble sleeping that you can start to look at is, are you watching TV just before bed? Or are you maybe on games or playing on your phone? Are those things you partake in? And maybe that could be one of the reasons why you're not actually able to fall asleep at night. So think of replacements. Think of options you can do instead of that stimulation from those screens. And some positive things are, they suggest maybe a warm bath. So really just relaxing in that bath. And what you could even do is participate in maybe a short meditation. So really trying to clean your head and really slow that thought process down so that you can really actively start to get control of your mind and really start to slow the pace of that thought process down. So another bedtime ritual that they suggest is maybe reading. So quietly in a dim lit area until you get really drowsy. So just reading. Now for me, that can actually go against me. So there's certain books that I actually will not read close to bedtime. Because for me, sometimes I get too excited or too into something. And then I start to want to push back my sleep or maybe not go to sleep yet until a certain chapter is finished. So really trying to make sure that the reading material that you have on your bedside table is actually something that will help promote you to sleep, not something that's going to get you really excited and make you really want to stay up. Other good habits Are eating actually a really healthy diet? So a good diet and getting our regular exercise, those two things can help us achieve our sleep. One thing that they suggest though with a healthy diet and getting that regular exercise is maybe not exercising just before bedtime. So making sure there's a couple of hours in between there so your heart rate can start to slow down again and you can start to relax before trying to get to sleep. Another big tip that was suggested is actually avoiding napping. So sometimes if we don't get enough sleep at night, we feel that we have to get that little nap to get us through, or that little nap to help compensate for the lack of sleep that we got the night prior. But in reality, napping, when it's over that 20-minute period, it's actually going to start to prevent us from getting to sleep the next night. Okay, so making sure that if we're napping, we're really cutting it off at that 20-minute cat nap kind of period so that we're actually going to be tired when we want to go to bed the following night. I already mentioned about avoiding caffeine, but they also suggest avoiding nicotine and alcohol. Okay, so caffeine and alcohol can interrupt our sleep, and that really leads to poor quality of sleep. So even though you feel like you're getting enough hours, maybe you're not feeling rested. So really looking at your diet specifically and seeing what maybe might be contributing to that poor sleep quality. Another piece that's really worth bringing up is, what is your room like? Is your room and bed, are they actually conducive to sleep? So is your bed comfortable? Is your room maybe dark? What is the temperature like? And what's the volume? Is it quiet? So really looking at your environment in your bedroom and making sure it is conducive to sleeping. So going back to that piece of if your mind is racing too much. So I'm a huge supporter of meditation before sleep. So I had another episode earlier on really talking about meditation and what that is. So basically trying to control your thoughts or slow them down at least. So sometimes we can almost get lost. We almost can't even figure out what's going through our brains because it's so fast and there's so much. So meditation is really going to help you try to just slow that pace down. So I really like the thought of meditation. It really, you start to visualize maybe one thought coming in and going out, as opposed to multiple thoughts randomly kind of going through your head at once. So it's really about slowing down. In ways you can do that, there's always different types of meditations, but some are going to allow you to focus on something else. So that's really going to allow you to pay attention to a certain maybe that focal point, or maybe it's a mantra that you're really putting your energy towards. Or it could just be trying to slow down your thoughts. Okay, so maybe it's not that visual that you're really trying to, create in your mind. Maybe it's just really slowing down how those thoughts are forming in your head. So not giving immediate reaction to it, just acknowledging that your thoughts are kind of appearing and really just trying to control your breath and really allow those thoughts to just kind of come in your brain, but also leave just as quickly. So there's many YouTube videos that you can select, or there's great CDs in that out there with regards to meditation. But I highly recommend it because it's really helping you, in a way, get control basically of your mind, and really helps to wind you down before bedtime. Now, if meditation isn't your thing, that's perfectly fine. Another thing that you can actually start to do or try to do when your thoughts are really keeping you awake is get up and actually write them down. So sometimes journaling, just getting that idea or thought process out of your head and on paper, is going to help you stop focusing on it. And then once it's written down on paper, the whole goal is to allow you to detach to it and allow you to wind yourself down. Now, another thing I've heard a few different times, but I've actually never had to try it before, and that's if you're having trouble sleeping or difficulty sleeping, get out of bed. So they talk about actually getting out of your bed, going into another room, and doing something relaxing until you feel sleepy. So the whole goal of getting up and leaving your room is to allow you to make that connection, your brain to make that connection, that your bedroom is for sleeping. So that when you start to feel awake, you actually get up and physically leave your room and then do one of the things. So maybe that's reading that relaxing book. Maybe it's just going out and meditating or really writing stuff down, but doing one of those tricks or tips so that you can really start to slow yourself down and then go back to bed when you start to feel sleepy. So a big piece about getting up and leaving your room, make sure you're not doing something that's going to make you awake. So make sure you're not going out and watching TV or maybe playing games or really going on that phone or checking your email. Make sure you're going to participate in activity that's conducive to sleeping. So really starting to wind yourself down and prep yourself so that you can actually fall asleep. So I always think a big piece of our bedtime ritual is actually kind of sitting with ourselves and being self-aware. So really going over the behaviors or the actions that you're participating in just before bed. Maybe do you need to change that ritual a little tiny bit? Or do you need to make your bedroom a little bit more of a safe place to sleep? So nothing really engaging in there, or the light is dim, or a really big thing is the temperature of your room. Really put thought into those things to really help set you up for sleep. Now, I know my biggest thing that I will always recommend is the meditation piece. That's something that, if I'm having trouble falling asleep or if I wake up at that magical hour of 3:00 and can't get back to sleep, for me, it really is about focusing on my breath. Sometimes I even actually do something really simple like count my breaths. And as I count them, I slowly start to daze off. So I always think it's funny when people say count sheep, because I think they have some really important suggestions there. And it's just basically trying to focus your attention somewhere. Because if we open it up to every thought that pops into our head, that's when, once again, our brain starts to really become active and we really start to kind of have those emotional attachments to it. So it may be worry or stress or concern. So really focusing on one thing can help us just wind down. So sleep is one of the most important things we can actually do for ourselves. Letting our bodies and brains get some much needed rest time and rejuvenation is essential for us being our best selves and are allowing our bodies to actually function at their peaks. I get that we all have multiple demands that we actually put on ourselves and things that really need to get accomplished. But I feel we need to start promoting and encouraging each other to address sleep as one of those priorities, not a nicety. Think of it as an important part of self-care. And every time I think about self-care, I always think of the airline attendants. Put on your own oxygen mask before you put on anyone else's. So really make it a priority for yourself to set up that sleep schedule. Make sure that the things that you do before bed actually start to wind you down as opposed to rev you up and get your brain really active. So whether it's making that bedtime a priority, really adjusting your bedtime ritual to help you succeed, eliminating maybe some bad habits that you might actually be partaking in that you really didn't even know about, or whether it's making your bedroom more appealing for sleep. I wish every single one of you so much luck and success. Remember, sleep's something that we can do for ourselves to help us be the best version of ourselves. So make it a priority. Good luck. So guys, don't forget to rate the show. I love hearing reviews on iTunes or Facebook, whatever it's through. But know that we absolutely love hearing from you. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. I always feel so honored to have started this podcast. It's my way to encourage and support a positive way of life. I find it's really hard out there sometimes, guys, and life never comes with a manual. So let's continue to support each other in every single opportunity that we get. Take care of yourself. Remember, you are very important. And no, guys, a great way to actually promote a positive lifestyle is actually to participate in one yourself. So have an absolutely amazing day out there, and never ever forget to power yourself.